Chapter 7. Every single one of them were first-rate organizations, but if asked which one is the most gallant of them all, 5 people out of 10 would answer the Striding Steeds. That Striding Steeds division leader Karun Zieghart, who was also the second son of Lord Glenn, tooted with a frown. Zieghart owned multiple powerful armed organizations, befitting their reputation as ruler of the North. Didn't you say that he was a patient, one who can't even move properly? Many maids heard the conversation between the ragged saint and my lord. He is suffering from a severe illness, for sure. I have heard that as well. Just like the last time I saw him, his body wasn't normal today, either. However, Karun Zieghart tapped the desk, which caused not only the desk, but also the whole office, to tremble. He withstood father's pressure. The pressure that Glenn had emitted at the ceremony could be compared to a firefly, while his full pressure was like the sun. However, a 12-year-old, and a sickly one at that, managed to withstand it. It was an unbelievable sight, despite seeing it with his own eyes. Would Bayan have been able to withstand it? There was no response, as Karun seemed to be talking to himself. No, he wouldn't. Bayan was his son, who had started to train at the age of 7, and he had frequently fed him high-quality elixirs. And even with such an upbringing, Bayan wouldn't have withstood his father's pressure. So the fact that Raon did kept bothering him. Sylvia was also very talented, more than anyone. She was disabled because of her energy center and mana circuit breaking, but her talent was undisputable. Is it possible to send someone to the annex building? It will take some time, but it's possible. The butler, who was waiting in front of the door, nodded. Then do it. Karun turned away with sparkling eyes. Report everything that happens there. Raon left his room before morning light. After a quick warm-up in the garden, he started running near the annex building. He had said that he would work out in preparation for the training, so no one should have bothered him. Huff. Although he hadn't been running for a long time, he was already out of breath. His body was much weaker than in his previous life. Ha! He held his breath as he got short of breath. He handled the ring of fire while focusing on the simple action of inhaling through his nose and exhaling through his mouth. Nature's mana was entwined in each breath that passed his lips. The mana particles, which were fluttering like pollen, ran through his mana circuits to give vitality to his body and suppress the emerging ice. It's a good flow. Raon nodded. The ring of fire was most effective when combined with physical activities. That was why he was able to handle the mana at a level and purity much more superior than usual. Ho! His clothes were wet with sweat, and he felt burnt out. However, he couldn't stop himself from smiling from the vitality the ring of fire was generating. Raon! While he was trying to focus more on the bliss of training that stimulated his whole body, Sylvia's head poked out of the window that burst open. Why are you overdoing it from the first day? Huff, huff. Raon slowed his steps and started panting. You're sweating so much. That was way too much. It just started. Breathing heavily, he lowered his head. It wasn't a bother. She did well stopping me. Sylvia was correct this time. He was more like a patient, so he would have gotten sick if he kept running, despite the vitality from the ring of fire. I still have plenty of time. There was still a month before the start of basic training. It was enough time to raise the 2-star ring of fire up to 3-star, so he needed to proceed slowly, without haste. I'm going to rest in my room. How is your body? Does it feel bad anywhere? He shook his head at Sylvia, who was looking around his body with concerned eyes. No. I think I need to stop for today and rest. If you overdo it again tomorrow, I'm going to forbid you from training. Don't worry. Raon smiled lightly and went to his room. Now, I shall practice with the vertical ring. The ring of fire that rotated horizontally developed the body, while the ring of fire that rotated vertically developed the mind. He had been practicing with the horizontal ring of fire up to that point, so it was time to practice with the vertical one. Raon closed his eyes while sitting on the floor. He took in nature's mana with a greater mental focus than when he was running. BZZT. A flimsy shadow started to form next to the 2 rings of fire that were rotating around his heart. Glenn Sieghart left the Lord's Manor and headed to the 5th training ground, alone. Upon entering, he could see the instructors strengthening the yellow ground that hundreds of trainees would use. "Greeting, my lord." Glenn waved his hand to the instructors' greetings and entered the head instructor's room, located on the periphery of the training ground. There was a rocking chair in the middle of the messy room, and a man was lying on top of it as if he was dead, a straw hat covering his face. "Stop pretending to sleep and get up." "Ugh." The man on the rocking chair took off his straw hat with a cloudy voice. The handsome man, appearing to be about 20 years old, got up while yawning. His red hair was loose around his face. His ears, which pointed up like blades of grass, were different from a human's. His mysterious appearance seemed otherworldly. With a beautiful appearance and pointy ears, the head instructor of the 5th training ground wasn't a human, but an elf, the race of nature. "My lord is the only person against whom my sleeping technique doesn't work. The other instructors are busy hardening the ground, yet the head instructor. They are merely following my orders. I'm working with my brain, and they are working with their body, so it's fair. Rimmer, it's been 50 years, but you are still so childish. Like the saying goes, humans never change. Oops, I'm an elf." The elf named Rimmer stood from his chair, giggling. "Why did you bestow your presence upon me today? Is it because of your youngest grandson, by any chance?" Without responding, Glenn stared at Rimmer. As comrades in arms, they seemed to understand what each other was thinking just from meeting each other's eyes. "Sylvia came to beg, but I didn't expect my lord to also come." "Did Sylvia?" "She asked me to take care of Raon, so that he won't get hurt. If my lord also came to make such a request, then you've wasted your time." Rimmer's playful green eyes became dispirited. "My lord said that, even as the head of the house, you wouldn't interfere with this training ground. I'm not going to make any exceptions, even if he is your youngest grandson." "Then so be it." "I'm sorry?" Rimmer's jaw dropped as Glenn nodded. "Don't lower the training's intensity, and raise it as much as you want instead, so that a weakling would drop out." "You want me to increase the intensity, instead of decreasing it?" "Yes." "Then your grandson will fail, ah." Rimmer clapped his hands and smiled. "Wow, it looks like you love your grandson more than I thought. The love that you couldn't give to Sylvia is now going to that child. If you weren't my comrade in arms, your head would be flying right now." "Oh hoo hoo." With a creepy grin, he touched his neck. Clearly discriminate gems from pebbles, so that only those who deserve it can receive your training. Are you asking me to do a selection test? Use whatever method you prefer. Understood. Then I'm leaving. Yes, sir. Glenn left the place as Rimmer saluted. The instructors were still strengthening the ground as he left. Glenn looked in the western direction where the annex building was located, then turned around to walk towards the Lord's Manor. His steps looked heavier than usual. Raon was sitting in his room with his closed eyes. Golden smoke started to rise from his shoulders, which had remained immobile for more than 3 hours. The 3rd ring of fire has been obtained. The ring of fire has reached 3 stars. Your body and soul have become a little stronger with the effect of the ring of fire, 3 stars, Strength, agility, and stamina have increased with the effect of the ring of fire, 3-star, Mana affinity, willpower and energy have increased with the effect of the ring of fire, 3 stars, Water resistance has reached 3 stars. 1 strand of the curse of frost has disappeared. I did it. Raon clenched his fist, looking at the translucent message that appeared in front of him. Status window. Name, Raon Sieghart. Title, None. State, Curse of Frost, 8 strands, poor stamina, decline in athletic ability, decline in mana affinity. Trait, Ring of Fire, 3 stars, water resistance, 3 stars. Asterisk additional abilities have not been unlocked. 3 stars are on a whole different level. His body became more perceptive, as if his entire body had been swept up by the refreshing mana, and his mind had become clearer. With his mana circuit becoming broader, the ice was less painful and the muscles in his arms and legs had started to take form. This is certainly more effective now that it's past the novice stage. Ring of Fire was at its apprentice stage now that it had reached 3 stars. Even though he had barely reached that stage, he could feel the huge improvement in his mind and body. The status window must have played a crucial role as well. The magical message and status window were probably helping the Ring of Fire become way more effective than in his previous life. One strand of the Curse of Frost has disappeared, as well. He stood and casually moved his body. Feeling as light as a feather, he was confident that he could handle basic training, no matter how difficult it was. No, it's more than that. It wasn't just about handling the training. He felt like he wouldn't even lose to the so-called genius children of Sieghart. While he was so thrilled about it, his stomach rumbled. He realized that he had skipped both lunch and dinner. Shall I go eat? He left the room and made his way to the dining room. Inside the dimly lit dining room, Sylvia was sitting at the table. Why is Mom here at this hour? I've been waiting so I can eat with my son. Sylvia smiled and patted the chair next to her. But it's late. Although it was way past dinner time, since he had been forming his 3rd Ring of Fire, Sylvia pulled out the chair while smiling. It's okay. Sit down, quick. Raon sat down next to Sylvia with an awkward expression on his face. Helen. Yes. Helen's voice could be heard from the kitchen. Soon after, the maids brought out the food, all of which were his favorites. Raon. Sylvia smiled awkwardly, all while pushing dishes towards him. Mommy has something to tell you today. Something to tell me? Yes. She nodded and stayed silent for a while. Because Raon is smart, you must have thought it was weird. Why do we live separately, and why do others insult us? Raon put down the fork he was holding. It looked like Sylvia wanted to tell him about the past before training began. Even though he had a rough idea of what it was, he pretended that he didn't. Mommy is a criminal. Despite running away from her responsibilities, she returned and begged for her life. The start of Sylvia's story was heavier than he thought. She fell in love with his father, who she happened to meet during her mission. In order to be with him, an average night, she ran away from the household after breaking her mana circuit and energy center. Actually, you had a big sister. She was 2 years older than you and was named Shia. Then, my big sister is. Yes. Her voice became more subdued, like flowing water at the bottom floor of an underground cavern. A cadre from Eden recognized my face and attacked us. There was nothing we could do, as your father wasn't that strong, and I was pregnant with you. Eden was one of the 5 demons that opposed the 6 kings, where Sieghart belongs. Despite its warm name, it was a monstrous organization with lots of strong people, even more than the kingdom itself. Then how did Mom return? My father had secretly assigned a guard for me. Because they stayed away from us, they only managed to arrive after your father and sister were killed. Grandfather did? Raon narrowed his eyes. He couldn't have imagined that the cold-blooded Glenn would have assigned a guard. That's why Mommy is a criminal in this household. I really have no excuse for your grandfather. Sylvia lowered her head, and Helen and the maids clenched their fists. Raon gently looked at Sylvia. Selfish. Sylvia was selfish. She ran away from her household's responsibility for her own happiness and came back to beg for her life. It was understandable why both the direct and collateral lines treated her so harshly. However, she was the one who gave him a new life, and a love that he had never felt before. Even if everyone else called her selfish, she was the only mother he had ever known throughout 2 lives. Mom! Sylvia raised her head as Raon called her name. Do you regret it? Regret? Do you want to return to before you left the household? No, I don't regret it. Sylvia firmly shook her head. She said that she lived like a human for the first time after meeting father and my sister, contrary to how she had lived like an invisible person in her household. But I'm sorry for what I did to you. Because your mom is such a bad person. Were you happy? Yes. I was happy back then, and I'm also happy now. Then it's okay. Raon? I'm okay. Don't mind me. Raon smiled and grabbed the fork once again. It's okay to be selfish. It was fine if others called her selfish. Even if they called her a runaway, a coward, it was okay if she got insulted. But I'm going to take it all back. The position of Sieghart's direct line, which she had lost. He decided that he would first get that position back to her, before finishing the revenge that he planned to get. Sylvia sobbed. Young Master Raon. As a teardrop fell from Sylvia's big eyes, Helen and other maids who standing next to them also started to silently cry. Rattle. Inside the annex building's dining room, the rattling of tableware and sniffing sounds formed an unusual harmony. After sending Sylvia and the maids back with puffy eyes, Raon returned to his room. I should check before going to sleep. It seemed to be a good idea to clean his mind and body with the Ring of Fire, which had become 3-star, before sleeping. Whir. The rings surrounding his heart rotated and throbbed, as if they were alive. It certainly looked like the 3 stars made the rings rotate faster, and the effects on his body and mind were further enhanced. This is good. 3 stars were so effective, despite being the start of the apprentice stage, so it was worth looking forward to how impressive the intermediate stage was going to be. Raon rotated the rings of fire 5 times, then went to bed. Just as he was about to close his eyes, after turning off the lights, messages that he had never seen before appeared. Trait has been activated. Trait Wrath has been created. Wrath awakens. Chapter 8. Wrath? Raon swallowed hard and looked around. There is somebody here. Although it wasn't visible or audible, a presence had appeared in the room where he used to be alone. It must have been from the message. Flash. A blue flame ignited before his eyes as he stayed vigilant. From the fist-sized flame, a terrifying wave emerged, resembling the eminence of a volcanic eruption. Finally. From the inside of the blue flame, a chilly voice sounded. It sent shivers down his spine. A madness that could explode at any moment was contained in the voice. What is this? He had a considerable amount of knowledge due to his previous life, but he had never heard nor seen a talking flame. The wrath that you have nurtured has reached the King of Essence. Under the name of the second monarch of Devildom, Wrath, I will grant your revenge. Offer your mind and body. The blue flame that introduced himself as Wrath, the monarch of Devildom, dropped its jaws after looking him up and down. A child? Why is a child? What are you? Who are you? The wrath that reached me wasn't an emotion that a child still wet behind his ears could possess. Wrath's voice was low but contained turbulent feelings. Wrath? Raon frowned. He might have felt it in his previous life, but he had never been infuriated in his current life. Hold on, previous life? When he thought about it, he had obtained the mysterious ability called Status Window after being reincarnated with the memories of his previous life. That had occurred after he had died. He came to the realization that it could have been Wrath that gave him those special abilities. Was it you who gave me the Status Window? Status Window? You can use it? Yes. Nonsense. The blue flame surrounding Wrath convulsed. The connection was lost. Why? Who are you, and why did you show up here? You are the one who called the King of Essence. I called you? You blazed out in anger. You said you would kill someone at any cost. The advent of the King of Essence was to grant your wish. Ah. He remembered swearing he would kill Darius Robert at any cost. From what he said, it looked like the flame had appeared in front of him because of his anger back then. But it's too late. There was 2 years of time lapse between his previous and current life, and it had been 12 years since he was born. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, being 14 years late. Did you say you would grant me revenge? Indeed. What is the cost? Passionate flames ignited in Raon's eyes. Nothing is free in the world. From what you said earlier. Are you going to take my body and soul? If you crave your revenge, it is only natural to offer your paltry mind and body. He patiently looked down at Wrath. Something could be seen, confined inside the blue flame. An inhuman existence was giving a wicked smile. Did this happen because I was reincarnated? If he had to guess, it must have been because he had died in his previous life, before Wrath could take over his body. Revenge is meaningless if not achieved by me. He had been played by Darius his entire life, but finally got a new chance after dying. He couldn't accept somebody else granting him revenge. I have to do it myself. No matter how difficult it was, he was going to cut off Darius' head by himself. He had no intention of leaving it to others. Excuse me. You're right. Wrath glared at him with eyes hidden inside the blue flame. You are hiding a deep and dark wrath at the bottom of your heart. He smiled with his teeth. I don't care what happened. The King of Essence has already decided, so you just have to offer your body. As anger burned up from Wrath's voice, the blue flame struck him. Ku! Raon grabbed his chest, bending at the waist. It was cold. Not only his body, but his mind was also frozen. Wrath's affinity wasn't fire, but ice. Think of him and increase your anger. The King of Essence will kill him for you, even if he is a god. His heart was pounding because of Wrath's creepy voice. It felt as if his heart was pierced by an icicle. Water resistance, 3 stars, is activating. Water resistance. The water resistance that he had obtained from absorbing the ice was reducing the pain from Wrath's icy power. However, Wrath's attack wasn't just ice. Ku! Raon moaned painfully. He remembered Darius' face, the way he laughed while looking down on him like a bug, making him gasp. Leave your body to the King of Essence. I will break his skull and chew on his flesh. Raon gasped for breath. As Wrath's voice incited his emotions, Raon wanted to explode with his anger towards Darius. Absolutely not. Raon bit back his emotions as hard as he could. If he left his body to Wrath, he could do terrible things to Sylvia and the maids. Even if he were to die there, he couldn't give him his body. I have to endure. He clenched his fist to bleed. He was an assassin, and the best one at that. Patience and emotionlessness were the qualities of an assassin. You are enduring better than I thought, but for how long? No one can win against the icy power of the King of Essence. As if Wrath was mocking him, he released an icy power capable of freezing his mind and body. Huff! It was a relief. It was going to be difficult to hold on if he kept inciting his emotions, but he chose to enhance his icy power instead. Raon caught his breath and withstood the icy power penetrating to his bones. A mere human dares. Wrath's burning voice was irritated and angry. I wanted to avoid harming the body that the King of Essence was going to use, but it can't be helped. I'm going to devour you alive. It wasn't an exaggeration. As his flame grew bigger, the intensity of the icy wave assailing his mind and body increased immensely. Ku! Unable to withstand it, Raon groaned. His lip parted as he felt the pain of his flesh being torn apart and organs being severed. Raise your anger and accept the King of Essence. Are you planning to die? I'd rather die than give my body to someone like you. He bit his tongue to come to his senses. The moment he resolved to die rather than giving Wrath his body, he had an idea. Wait. If water resistance can block his icy power, then the ring of fire might be able to lower the pain in both his body and mind. Even if it didn't, he had to give it a try. Rage. Raon forcefully calmed his mind and started rotating the rings of fire. The 3 rings of fire around his heart started to spin violently. Ring of Fire, 3 stars, is greatly reducing the damage to your mind and body. It went as expected. The Ring of Fire was a cultivation technique that could develop and protect the mind and body. Therefore, it was also effective at enduring external stimulation. The Ring of Fire rotated rapidly, bringing vitality to his body and mind. The emotions that were about to explode started to subside. The willpower that he had built up from his previous life, the Ring of Fire, and water resistance combined, greatly reducing the pain and stimulus that Wrath was inflicting. What are you? Wrath's voice was astonished. Whoosh! His barrage of icy power gradually became weaker. It looked like he couldn't stick to him if he didn't increase his anger. How did a mere human child? I am a human, but I am not a child. Casting off the subsiding icy power, Raon responded calmly. This doesn't make any sense. Not at all. Wrath came away from his body while screaming furiously. His lips were shaking like a scared colt. Even though it hasn't been long since I woke up, for the King of Essence to be pushed back by a mere human. Ha! Raon exhaled and glared at Wrath. His flame wavered like a lamp in the wind. Revenge is mine to take. I'm not leaving my body to a minor demon. Minor demon? You dare call a monarch of Devilldom a minor demon? You can't even deal with me, yet call yourself a monarch of Devilldom. I guess all the other monarchs are dead. You. Are you for real? Wrath amplified his flame once again, but only the size increased. The icy power was a lot weaker than before. He said he just woke up. Waking up from a sleep or a seal. Either way, it looked like he couldn't use his full force. As Raon shook it off violently, Wrath's fire was thrown off, fluttering away like a paper. The sound of Wrath grinding his teeth could be heard from the inside of the blue flame. I'm impossible. How are you controlling your emotions? There is no need to tell you. Now disappear. You took the power of the King of Essence. How can you ask me to leave? Wrath glared at him with rage and hate. And the King of Essence has already decided. Before you died, I couldn't separate from you even if I wanted to. Ah! Raon aimed a punch at the mumbling Wrath. Although the flame dispersed, he couldn't feel the blow. It was as if he'd punched empty space. Then, he gathered mana on his fingertips. It was lousy compared to aura, but still better than nothing. Swoosh! He slashed with the mana-enhanced hand knife, but Wrath just revived like a candlelight that had managed to withstand the wind. What are you doing? TSK, this won't work, either. Wrath was like a soul and didn't have a physical body. Because of that, it didn't seem like he would disappear even if he used an aura. Now that I think about it. Even though Wrath let out his intense power, the swordsmen who were guarding the annex building didn't barge in. It must have been because Raon was the only one who could see or feel him. How do I make you disappear? Give your body to the King of Essence. Then. You must be crazy. As Raon sneered, a message popped up. Ding. An additional ability has been unlocked. An additional ability? Raon immediately opened the status window. Status window. Name, Raon Zighart. Title, None. State, Curse of Frost, 8 strands, poor stamina, decline in athletic ability, decline in mana affinity. Trait, Wrath, Ring of Fire, 3 stars, water resistance, 3 stars. The question marks that occupied the first slot of the trait were replaced by Wrath. But that wasn't the important part. There was new information under the status window. Strength, 13. Agility, 13. Stamina, 12. Energy, 12. Perception, 40. The abilities, such as strength and agility, were evaluated in numbers. Why, you really do have the status window. Cold frost spilled from Wrath's mouth. It seemed that he couldn't see the contents of the status window, as he murmured that he could only see the silhouette. What is the status window and the message? It's a system that the King of Essence created. System? For what? I have no reason to tell you. To accelerate growth? How? How did you? I knew it. Like a reflex, he responded as soon as he felt him out. Just like his name suggested, Wrath couldn't hide his feelings. It's as I expected. Raon nodded. He thought it was weird that the Ring of Fire was more efficient than in his previous life, and it was because of the system. Give it back. Your body, my power, give them all back. Wrath started to throw a tantrum. He looked like a baby sitting on a massive throne. I don't know how to give them back, nor do I have any intention to do so. He obtained the ability to grow faster, to a higher peak. There was no reason to give it back to the madman that tried to take his body. It's not yours. And you tried to take my body, which is not yours. The King of Essence heard your wishes. I did desire revenge, but that is something I must do myself. It's meaningless if I realize it by giving up my body to something I don't understand, like you. Ku. Wrath ground his teeth but couldn't open his mouth, as he had nothing to say. Go away, now. Raon turned away as he finished the conversation. I can't go. I won't leave until you give me back my power. Wrath screeched and assaulted Raon. The moment Raon clenched his fist, thinking he would cope with it as much as he wanted, Wrath's body started to shine blue. Rage. The blue flame flowed like water to wind around his wrist. Raon prepared for the incoming pain, but it didn't hurt at all. Zoom. The blue flame around his wrist disappeared and a bracelet appeared. It was a flowery bracelet made of ice. I'm going to stick with you until the day you die. Wrath provoked him by shaking the flower hanging on the bracelet. It hasn't been long since I woke up, but my power will soon return. When that happens, you won't be able to stop me, no matter what you do. Sure. Raon tried to take off the bracelet, but just like when he tried to touch the flame, it just dispersed instead of being caught. But it didn't look completely ineffective as the bracelet vibrated, and Wrath stopped talking each time he touched it. Ku, it's useless. The King of Essence will never be chased away. Let's try it, then. He tried to scratch, pull, rub it against the wall, and trample on the bracelet. However, Wrath didn't disappear. He was very tenacious. Tisk. He tooted. The flowery bracelet didn't disappear, no matter what he did. Even though I do want to remove it. It might be better to just leave it be. The system could disappear if he forcefully took it off, and there was a chance that the demon would transfer to Sylvia or Helen. Like the saying goes, keep your friends close, and enemies closer. It would be better to keep him nearby, instead of having him plotting somewhere unseen. Counting on the ring of fire and water resistance to keep growing, he decided to keep Wrath under control. If you aren't going to get off, then change your appearance at least. A bracelet with flowers doesn't suit you. Raon frowned. He could at least understand if it were a skull, but he didn't want to wear a flowery bracelet. Respect my tastes. Ha! He was at a loss for words at how the taste of this violent and impatient guy was a flowery bracelet. The King of Essence has never let go of his prey. Your body and mind are mine. I'd better ignore it. Ku. You damn brat. Raon blocked his hearing and went to bed. Wrath whimpered, but he ignored him. But if Wrath is the system's owner, and doesn't know that I was reincarnated, then who reincarnated me? Raon murmured the new question and closed his eyes. Creak. Wrath ground his teeth, looking at the sleeping Raon. How can a human like this exist? Even though he wasn't at full power, he had never thought a human could stop his possession, let alone a 10-year-old child, *. It doesn't make any sense. Although he was from a different age, he had seen countless humans. Among them was a hero that founded a country with his sword, and a villain that made the whole continent tremble in fear. But it was the first time seeing a human like him. It was as irritating as if he was looking at that guy. Just you wait. The day the King of Essence's power returns, I'm going to devour your soul. Wrath declared, unable to hold in his rage. That won't happen, stop dreaming. The young human shook his hand, as if he was driving away flies. The King of Essence never gives up. I said it won't.